it's not, it doesn't seem to be carrying the weight that it should carry, but rhythmically, it is carrying a weight that gets everybody going, but then tomorrow it dies.
I think, how do I put it? Because I think that if you speak if it's from a secular perspective, I see that happening. But I think what I've seen over the years as the religious and spiritual music has evolved is that there's still that residual impact there. Yes, it's a fast-paced world, and some music will die along the way. But I think as you embrace, there's constant regeneration. So to say that the music dies fast, I would not necessarily 100% agree with that. What I know though is that from what I'm seeing is that the evolution of knowledge and all of that, it continues to regenerate itself, and that itself presents opportunities for persons to partake in it.
I want to bring in Bradley at this time. Bradley, a young musician who served the Boulevard Church for a few years as a musician. And I want Bradley to share with us his own experience and certainly bring some perspective to this subject. Bradley, welcome.
All right, good night, everybody. I don't know why my dogs decide that they want to start barking as soon as I am ready to talk. But you know, my experience with music has kind of been a sort of a love-hate relationship, to say. You know, I started out playing classical music, and I had a teacher. And, you know, from there, I realized that I wasn't so enthused about the classical music anymore. And I think my teacher noticed that. And so she transitioned me to more contemporary forms of music, you know. And, you know, it kind of cascaded into worship music, or music that I would hear on a Sunday. And one of the things that I think was a very appointed moment or time, I guess, in just my development as a musician was Brother Gerard. Some of you may know him, Brother Gerard Mercier. You know, he took quite a keen interest in me, and he taught me how to play by ear. And I think that was very appointed for me in my own life, because I developed a way in which I could express what I was feeling inside about the Lord in how I played. So before it was, you know, playing the songs of others, or playing classically, or playing jazz, or playing familiar songs, but now for the first time, I got the opportunity to actually play the songs that I enjoyed, or the songs that made me feel good about the Lord and how I felt about Christ, etc. But the reason why I said that it's been a sort of love-hate relationship is because there were moments where, I guess as a young person, I kind of felt bored. You know, I kind of felt bored singing the same songs or playing the same songs. And so I guess I could say I looked for other more contemporary pieces of worship music. I looked for other instruments to pick up. You know, I picked up the acoustic guitar and then the bass guitar after that. And so it's been an ongoing journey, I'd say. And I think it's been a continuous development. And I've seen how it has enhanced my spiritual development with the playing of instruments. So that's been my experience thus far.
But tell us, Bradley, though, you would have shared with us your development musically and spiritually. but help us to understand how that was shaped in a traditional Baptist church. What were the roadblocks for you, if any? Were you helped along the way? Certainly you mentioned Gerard Mercier, but how did you feel? You spoke of the love-hate relationship. Take us through that a little bit in terms of, was there resistance to what was happening? The sense of boredom you felt?
I think that it's probably a bit of youthful naivety as well as perhaps spiritual naivety or immaturity, I should say. And also just, I think that just like when you listen to any song, you may pick up a song and you may listen to a song, you say, boy, this song nice, man, and you listen to it and you listen to it and you listen to it. But then maybe after the 30th or the 40th or the 50th time of listening to the song, you realize that, boy, so I don't like this song again. And then you pick up another song. There was this sort of almost repetition or familiarity, then I should say, that made it less exciting for me. And I think that sometimes we can get caught in this sort of traditionalism then, where because we may sing the same songs or we may play the same genres or the same types of music, it can almost lose its meaning to us. Not that the songs or the lyrics innately are less meaningful or impactful, but I think that there's something about familiarity where we can almost get numbed to the meaning and the heart of what it stirred in you the first time. So in that sense, I would say that it's kind of been a back and forth to find that first love, to find that first heart of falling in love with music and using music as a tool to engage the heart of the Lord in a meaningful way.
Thank you, Bradley. Just before I ask our learned musician and friend, Godfrey, to make his debut entry, I want to be the devil's advocate, so to speak. And I want to drag memory down a particular road when in the not so long ago, the choir of the Boulevard Church would have done a song in church, Jah is my keeper. Of course, we know the history and the background to that song, but in latter years, it was made popular in the Christian space when it was rewritten by musician Audie Davidson. And it created quite a stir after that Sunday morning as to the appropriateness of the song in worship, given who the original author was. Some of those questions remain unanswered. And certainly we have not sought to repeat that song in worship. I want to use that bit of narrative to bring Godfrey Taylor in. Godfrey, welcome.
Thank you. I would begin by saying, ready. But I know my friends at Boulevard, they're not a fearful set of people. But I think I would have to take us down a road looking at a little bit of the history of music in the church. Originally, music had to be monophonic because there's one God. And because there's one God, sound has to be singular. Bless God. But then, as it went on, a second note could be sounded at the same time that the first note was sounded. And so you got some kind of an inkling of harmony. what they would allow is for that harmony to move in the same distance from the first note all the way throughout. So you got this kind of plain song and the chant kind of thing with the monks in the monastery and that kind of stuff. In the regular world that normal people lived, they were having guitars, lutes, harps, and those kinds of things. And they were playing in their bars, taverns, beg your pardon, and making their music. And anybody and everybody was singing. So you had sounds of different kinds coming in and they were having fun. The church frowned on that. But eventually, guess what? It crept into the church. So by the time you had the time of Bach and Handel, church was polyphonic. Church music was polyphonic. So you had some singing going up, some singing coming down, and they met, they crossed, and oh, it was so wonderful, you know, gloriously wonderful. One of the songs that there are two songs that I think about very readily. The first one is a most holy song. I mean, every Easter time for the Passion of Christ, we think of the Passion Chorale. Oh, sacred head, sore wounded or once wounded, depending on which church you go to and which text you read. Oh, sacred head, once wounded. So lovely. None of us would ever think that it had anything to do with, the tune had anything to do with my darling's fair hair. That's where the tune is coming from. Another one we think of for those churches that are not Baptist and that baptize infants is When Mothers of Salem. It's a righteous song, so lovely. When mothers of Salem their children brought to Jesus, the firm disciples turned them back. Okay, now that tune was a student's drinking song in Germany. That's where it came from. They would row across the river, and when they came back, they would mix this drink, which had something mixed with spirit. And it would be in a cup, and they would light it, and they would drink it. It was called Rambambuli or something like that. And I mean, these are not their words. I put my own words to it. And when my heart is full, and you can just imagine a man in a bar in Jamaica. And when my heart is full of glee, I drink my Rambambuli, Rambambuli. But we sing it so righteously. Now, why have I gone that route? It's that because we don't know the genesis of the music, we call it righteous. We know the genesis of Wind Down Kingston, you can't carry that coming to church. Worse, you want to carry in ska and reggae. No, you can't. In my mother's day, my parents' day, the music they listened to would have been frowned on by a century before. Me, the music I wanted to listen to, my parents frowned on it. The music, horror of horrors, that my children want to listen to, I don't quite relate to it. I don't frown, but it's not me. I am now becoming my father. And the music that he used to sing all around the place, I now sing it all around the place. What am I saying? We are going to have to get used to the fact that times change, music changes. But as I was saying to you before, the scriptures tell us that faith, which is what church should be about, building faith. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word. So if the people are not coming to hear you, they won't get faith. No, so it means we have to bring something that will make them want to come to hear. And the music itself is, generally speaking, neither heathenic, just the music, forget the text. some music may make your body want to move. And it is the movement of the body that makes some people worry about the music. So that is where our church is caught in a conundrum, because now people are moving to the music, forgetting what those who don't like it have forgotten that David danced before the Lord in such a way that his wife was upset with him because he was moving too much. Now our people, our younger folk, and some of the older ones too, want to move. So our music has changed. And if the church does not accept the change, the younger folk and the folk who are more interested in a different kind of music will go elsewhere. The age, as we know in our churches, has gone up. The median age has moved up. So now we're looking at most of our congregations in the general established churches, 60, 70, you know. It won't be 90 because those won't be able to come out. So those will be homebound. So we have to, how are we going to regenerate the attendance in our church? We have to be relevant. And that's why I'm coming from the Youth for Christ age. And Youth for Christ had it. You're geared to the times, but you're anchored to the rock. So you stay with the text. It's a text that you stay with. And the theology, the doctrine, but you have to change to suit the times.
Brother Godfrey, I hear you. I really do hear you. But the matter of the text and the importance of the text and the part it plays is something that even as a choir director is troubling for me. Because again, I'm going to be the devil's advocate. The church can be a very ungrateful space when it comes to music. Meaning, you will sing today, "O Sacred Head, Once Wounded." Very few persons listen to or even understand or try to follow the text and what is written. But the moment the rhythm or the music takes them to a place, the applaud is tremendous. A classic example is if the choir does a piece and it ends in anything past a B flat, the applause that comes with it is interesting. Even when the song went through moments, periods of derailment and crashes. But the moment we get to a nice, quiet Sunday morning, holy, 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 very few persons appreciate that. How then do we strike the balance of making the text meaningful?
You strike the balance. And when I wouldn't use the word counsel, but when I speak with persons about wanting to change the music in the church to attract younger folk, my first recommendation is you don't want to run out the older folk. There are business reasons why you don't do that either, but you don't want to run out the persons who have been in church and holding up the church. But we have to recognize that we need the mix. So we introduce it strategically. You begin by introducing, not overwhelming. So you introduce one of the new songs. If you wait too late to introduce the new songs, there will be nobody in there to introduce it to. I mean, that's just the reality. But you introduce the song, introduce another new song. Don't do the way I've seen it happen in the US. Every week is pure new songs. So when you see everybody stand up, praise and worship, and generally the men are standing still. The ladies are all lost in it. And they're not singing everything though because the song is new. But then the praise and worship team is paid. So therefore, the praise and worship team has to earn their thing. So they have to sing a new song every week. We need to balance it out. You introduce something new, and you maybe spend just a toops of a time talking about what the new text means, how it fits into our theology. We be careful of songs that we spend so much time singing about Satan, for example, rather than about God. All right, we're worried about the text sometimes, but a lot of our regular old hymns are very repetitious as well. So it's not the issue of being repetitious. It's where does the music intersect with your experience? Ask anybody who fell in love when a particular song was being played. Every time they hear that song, their mind goes back to, I fell in love. In the same way, where you were when, as a space with yourself, your experience, when they played, and can it be that I should gain an interest in the same? Every time you hear that song, you go back to that space. So as a song intersects with your life, when you hear it, you go back to it. And so we need to introduce music strategically so that it intersects with people's life experiences. That's the way I would put it.
Thank you, Brother Godfrey. To our 19 persons who are on the YouTube platform, we welcome you to this panel discussion, and to the 32 of us who are on the Zoom platform, we also welcome you. Later on, I'll check the Facebook platform to determine the participation and the attendance there. But before we take Sister Cheryl, I want to see if any of our participants would like to give an expression at this time, ask a question of the panel, so we can make this a very inclusive discussion. Don't be shy. If you have a question, you can indicate, raise a hand, or drop a message in the chat, and we'll have a conversation around it. Just as I seek to bring in Sister Cheryl, one of the things, panelists, a few years ago, there was a song that became very popular, Break Every Chain. And today, I continue to look at the song because it still doesn't speak to what exactly the song was saying, in my mind, because it was a continued, repetitious line: break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. And then when I tie that said chorus, Brother Godfrey, to a hymn you mentioned a while ago, and can it be, the two last lines of verse 4, I can make the connection to the break every chain in that song, because there was a response to the breaking of the chain in that song. My chains fell off, my heart was free. The response was then, I rose, went forth and followed thee. But then I still can't make the connection with the break every chain, repetitious line that was once popular. And this is where the conversation has now taken us, because a lot of what we are embracing sometimes is highly repetitive. A matter of fact, Brother Godfrey, you will agree with me that a lot of the music we sing in church, especially in the chorus lineup, they make no sense. Theologically, they're not sound, but we sing them.
I wouldn't say a lot. But again, if you go look at the Black American experience, out of which a lot of that's the music we are now singing comes. Some of it is also Hillsong, which is a different story, and I'm not going there today. But from the Black experience, the concept of breaking the chain you could say it, and if you've been in a Black American church and you heard the breaking of the chain and you preach, and sometimes we out here get it too, because we feel if we don't have the accent, we don't really have the Holy Spirit. You will repeat. It's the repetition to drive something home. I'm not saying that this song is good, but I'm not saying that the song is bad. The repetition, it depends again on how it intersects. We don't have the same experience they have. A lot of what we sing out here as choruses are very repetitious, not coming from North America. But I rest my case. Sherry,
Sister Sherry, let's hear what you have to say. Your little bit to add to this conversation.
Well,
As a member of the church, as a worshiper, as someone who is among us and with us Sunday after Sunday, you see and you can share. How does it affect you? There was a time when praising worship wasn't a common thing in a Baptist church, but now it is something that we all are embracing and have embraced. And how is it? How do you cope with it? What's the joy that it gives you in worship,
well,
if any?
Deacon Joseph. Okay, well, worship, I'm glad you talking about Baptist church, because I grew up in the Baptist church, and as a little girl, when you went to church, you didn't have the clapping of hand and anything like that, right? The hymns and songs of the song, very quiet, and you all sat quietly. But over the years, things have changed, and we have to change. The only thing constantly saying is change, because if we don't change, we're just going to get left behind. And with the young persons now, they are following the different, types of music. So the church has to come into that space to see if we don't change and have music, and so that they really appreciate, we are really going to lose them. And something God has said about not just bringing in everything new at once, because you're going to lose the older folks. And then we can't afford to lose the older folks, because we need the balance. We need the older folks to guide the younger ones coming up, because it's a reflection of the society where there's this breakdown of values and morals and everything, because the older persons are not there to guide. So if you just do a drastic change and you have everything new, right? The older people are going to be left out, and we really need them there to guide the younger ones. So we really need to have the balance. A lot of gospel music and soul that are modern, contemporary, reggae type. It's still praises, praises the Lord, and it doesn't lead you to get really out of hand. Some of them are very spiritual. So there's a place for everything, and as with everything, with society, industry, and so the technology that has to be used. So we can't just stay constant. We have to change. Look what is happening around, and we gear our music towards that. If we don't do that, we're going to lose the younger generation, because when you look in church there now, you hardly see any young people. They're not there. Why are not there? Why aren't they there?
Brother Alwin,
Yes, sir.
Sister Sherry left us with some questions.
Oh.
And being the father of two bright and beautiful young ladies, how do you answer that question? How do you help to answer Sister Cheryl's question for our listeners, for our participants, and to further continue this discussion?
I think for the church, what I see, when the youths are engaged in music, like say Third Sunday, and when they lead, then you see as if life comes out of them. And the only common thing which I see most times is just them leading and them participating in church through music. And most of the talent we have unearthed, which I see there, especially on Third Sunday, is when those young persons lead and say, well, boy, you know, what we may need to do is to get them involved more Sundays across the church. The challenge with young persons now, though, is that they are exposed to more knowledge and more information. And it's a general problem in society where they want it now, or you say, YOLO, I only live once. And unless you find the context to get them involved, then it's going to be very difficult. Yes, I have two. And the challenge you find with it is, whereas Sister Shirley point that when you're younger, you used to be told. Now it's more inclusion. And then you have to, I wouldn't say you have to negotiate, because they have their own opinions. And they go to school, they interact in their circles. And in those circles, it's really a changing environment. So to say, what I would say for the church is that where I started is that we are of a broader contextual environment, which is changing. And the music is one of them, like many other things in society. And to keep the various age groups, we'll have to find a way to engage them. And as Brother Godfrey would have pointed out, one of the things we have to look at is really how do we transition the different demographic groups to understand the why, because the message and the text remains the same. But how do you engage each on their own levels towards this greater mission of recognizing that the culture, arts, technology, it's a digital space, it's a global landscape. And unless Boulevard and unless the traditional churches embrace that thing, then what will happen? We'll all be left there.
Because, you know, Brother Alwyn, learning from the young people, because sometimes, you know, that third Sunday service, right? It seems sometimes for me, the best one for me. A lot of the songs that I sing, you know, in my time of private worship, you know, I learned there, you know, I never heard them before because it's not the songs I would normally listen to. But when the young people are there and they play those, you know, and I say, wow, but this is, you know, it is saying so much and it does so much. So the space is there where, you know, we really need to, you know, embrace, you know, the new form of music. It benefits us all.
And if I may add, when Brother Bradley spoke, and he spoke of I would say not word for word, but the short span of the different musical types. And what you're seeing is the same thing for young persons now, where what is relevant today may not be relevant tomorrow. And what is catchy today, they grab onto. And then as tomorrow comes, they move on to something else. And in all of that is really to keep relevance of self to what is taking place. And from a spiritual perspective, though, I believe once the text and the message remain the same, well, music is a combination of vocal and instrumental. And once the vocal, which is the text, remains the same, then the instrumental, whichever form it takes, as long as the outcome that we want is the same, then I think we should embrace it more.
I just throw in, if our young persons are not involved in church, they do not remain. My confession is, I'm here because my mother made sure that I played. In my days, you couldn't tell them, no, me not go to church. No, you are going to play. And so a place was found for me. The skill grew. I mean, the Lord bless you with it, you know, but the skill grew. And I continued playing. Now I have a place. I sometimes pull myself back and ask, while we are worried about our young persons not coming to church, if I was not playing, would I have been still in church?
Mm.
And I mean, I remember Bradley when I was playing here on I think it was a third Sunday, and Bradley was part of the group of persons who were playing in a band in Boulevard Baptist, you know, and you had a mix of ages. You had a bassy who went to school with me, and then you had some younger persons playing, and I'm saying, this is what we need to have in our more established churches,
Yes.
where we mix
Mhm.
both the organ, which the older folks seem to love more than the younger folk, the keyboards, the guitar, the bass, and the drum, which the older people, to be honest with you, them really don't like it because it's too noisy. It disturbs the eardrum. But the fact of the
And the
matter,
heart.
well, sit down further back and put the young people up front, let them handle it. But I thought that was a good way of ensuring, and so far, you're still going to church, right, Brother Bradley?
Always.
Always. And it is that involvement that keeps people in the church. So I throw that in the mix as well.
Sister Ralston, I saw your comment. Would you want to at this time elaborate very quickly on it, helping us to understand what you mean by there's a space for everyone or a place for everyone? Deacon Ralston, welcome to Talking Church.
Thank you. The younger people are very concerned about their acceptance in the church. And they're also mindful of the fact that they have ideas and sometimes their ideas are not embraced. So when, for example, they want to have their music in a particular way and maybe a little bit more up-tempo, they are not necessarily saying that this is what we want the entire church to sound like. They're saying, we are here, we need our space, just in the same way that some of us people my age in the 60s are singing hymns that date back to some as far back as the 1700s and the 1800s. They want to have their say or to have their kind of music appreciated and accommodated. Because when, for example, in the 90s, you had, you know, very light, na 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 na. I just want to praise him. When you have that kind of beat and that kind of up tempo singing, I think the first group I recall coming with that and was Mary Mary. The church wasn't very happy, but now it's accepted because persons are looking beyond the beat and seeing that the words are in sync with the actual word that the church is preaching. And they're seeing that it is getting and retaining the attention of the younger people in the church. My few words.
Deacon Ralston, we thank you for those comments. Just trying to pick at you a little though. As a member and as a deacon of this church, do you see where that is happening, in the sense that do you believe our young people have that space in which they can express themselves musically?
If I were to go with some of the comments I hear, I would say not totally. Because sometimes they would want to go on a particular path and they feel like they are just pushed aside. There are other times when they're accommodated. So it's a mixed bag.
What would be your caution, your advice to such a space at this time?
Well, as I said before, you know, there's space for everyone. There is space for the older, more sedate music. And music, like everything else, evolves. And so, as you pointed out earlier about the reaction originally about the Joy is My Keeper Peter Tosh song, I've seen it, that kind of what people would call secular music. I've seen where it is in church. The lyrics are, as I said before, in sync with the word of God. And so persons are more accepting. I've seen, for example, a lot of what people used to call secular songs with, if I might call a name, the folks who are behind Fun in the Sun. That lady was a secular singer, and a lot of her music now is being used in the church, and a number of the same kinds of beat, those are accepted in many of our churches. But back to the question you asked me. Advice. I don't know that I have anything to say other than the fact that we should allow space for the youth. I heard today in our meeting, our members meeting, plans to incorporate the youth more in worship, not just a third Sunday thing. And I think that's a good way to go, because the truth is our membership is getting on in years, as was pointed out earlier. And if the young people feel that, you know, they are not embraced, they are not allowed to express themselves in the way that they should as young people, we might have a quandary. We might be in a quandary. And we really do not want that kind of situation where they feel as if they're on the fringes. And some of the comments I've heard, you know, last year, the year before, in 2016, 2017, had to do with the fact that sometimes they just get shunted out of the way. My expression.
Thank you, Deacon Ralston. Thank you. Very insightful.
And brother Joseph.
Just one moment, please. I'm going to take Deacon Boyce before, though. His hand was raised before you opened your mic. So let's keep it in that order. So Deacon Boyce, I'm going to take your comment. Thank you again, Deacon Ralston, for those comments. Very insightful, very helpful to the discussion. Somewhere in here, in short order, I'm going to invite our pastor to make his own comments in this conversation. Dr. Wilson Morgan, we are agreeing with you that a lot of the music we sing was written from a space and by persons who were not of the Christian realm. We are agreeing, and there are a number of songs that we could speak about tonight that has that thematic background. So we are agreeing with you. Deacon Boyce, the person who is lettered B or titled B in the chat, we would like to know who you are. So please introduce yourself after. But Deacon Boyce, let's take your point, and then we'll go to, was that Brother Carl Ranger who tried to speak a while ago?
Yeah, that's B.
Right. Oh, okay. So we'll take Deacon Boyce, then we'll take you, Brother Carl, and then we'll come back to the panel, and then we'll invite Reverend Dick to share, to add to this conversation before we come back to our panel members. Brother Boyce.
Yes, I say quickly, based on feedback I've had, not just now, over the years, I think unwittingly it has turned out that what we have done or had done with the third Sunday as a youth Sunday, which I think meant well, has turned out to be just the opposite, because what the youngsters have felt, and I've said it because I've asked, is two things have happened. If you think about it, you can understand why. Here we have 4 Sundays in the month, sometimes 5, and the third Sunday thing, when it's Youth Sunday, comes across as if it's just a token thing, to accommodate them. Okay, give you a Sunday, because the other days, the other 3 Sundays, absence of youth. It's like you have a main event and you have a preliminary before in the show, and then the main guys really come up front. And what made it even worse is that I can't speak for other churches if they have that. And what happens when they experience that third Sunday and the church is half full, or many people are not there? In my own family, I've had that feedback. They feel as if one here, the third Sunday, as a token thing, and then it is reinforced by a lot of people not being there. That's the Sunday they take off. So I think the idea, I think we have to move it real fast, of involving our youth. The like I said, the youth is the future. The youth is very much present. That's why I like to look at it. And involving every Sunday in some aspect. And as I said earlier on, it's about balance and moderation, and not to force it in, but to accommodate, or to include, forcing the new thing on in the worship service.
I mean, Deacon Boyce, that's a common response that we are hearing tonight. That we need to have more inclusion right across Sundays, and not just on a third Sunday. Believe me, if I and this is probably a very dangerous territory, but I think one of the where we probably went wrong as a church, not Boulevard necessarily, but as a church, is when we started titling Sundays.
Yes.
So if I could put this out there,
yes,
each Sunday should be so involved.
Yes.
Right? So we move away from a Federation Sunday or a Youth Sunday or a Brotherhood. The moment we start titling Sundays is where we
dangerous. Agreed.
Thanks for that comment. I'm going to take Brother Ranger, Sister Michelle, who is on the chat, Michelle Smith. Yes, we are agreeing that Jah is indeed our keeper, and it's not about the messenger, but the message in the song. We thank you for those comments. Brother Ranger.
Good night, everybody. First question to you, Joe, is that have you ever tried to include those youths what sing on a Youth Sunday into the main choir? 1. And 2 is that I was just saying to Alvin today, and I agree with Sister Rawson, the gap there in the church is old and middle class, and the youth are nowhere to be found. Sister Rawson said that we're not accommodative to the youth, and it's so true. It's so true. So I would start by, Joe, is to try to include them, to get them on the choir to start singing with the singers. So right through every Sunday you have youths singing.
I hear you, my brother. The big question that you will have to answer first: do they want to join that choir? Are they interested in the least bit with the kind of music that choir sings? So, but something that I'm not knocking the idea. Don't misunderstand. It is where we have to go, because otherwise the senior choir will die out and there will be no replacement. We will end up with a set of small groups maybe around there. But along with that, we still have the problem of what music is accepted. Now, we knock Jah is my keeper. And it is not because of the text. The text is straight out of the scriptures.
Psalm 36.
And 27. Yeah. And so the knocking of it has to do with who wrote the music or who sang it first. However, nobody has a problem with Elvis Presley singing gospel and playing that gospel in a gospel setting. Nobody has a problem with a country and western singer who doesn't necessarily claim to be Christian singing a Christian song, and everybody used to, well, they don't buy records now anymore, you know, they download. But nobody had a problem running out and buying the CD sung by such and such a person, or the album sung by such and such a person, because, and I might get myself in trouble in this church here, Brother Dick, because the color, we still have a race issue. If the missionary comes down and is lighter skinned and tells us that, oh, you can wear makeup, all of a sudden, the women in the more apostolic and, you know, Pentecostal churches started wearing makeup. Before that, it was burn them, because, you know, so we're still tied in our choice of music to where the music comes from, in a racial perspective, rather than the text of the music. And if we're going to knock Peter Tosh, then let us lock off the others too.
Can I jump in here?
Sure.
The point about race, where the music is concerned. Today I was thinking also, you have some secular reggae artists, right? Like Papa San, Lieutenant Stitchie, Marian Hall, who converted, you know, became Christians. But you find that their music is not so accepted by the, let's say, proper Christians, for the want of a better word. But I was thinking to myself that, hey, this is where I should really be listening to them, because they were in the dark, to say, and they found the light, and, you know, they're singing, praising God, but yet still their music is not so accepted, because not that they were racist, but because they were from that, you know, reggae dancehall thing. But no, although they have converted and singing gospel, we don't readily accept them.
Bradley, your hand was raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point, and I think that we shouldn't understate the importance of vernacular in music. And, you know, when we speak about vernacular and languages, it's important because it helps us, it gives us insight into how young people relate to music. So when, you know, we are in church and we sing the thee and the thou's and the arts and the tempests and all of these you know, words that we don't use in our, you know, regular day-to-day experiences and lives, it becomes a little bit I guess harder to connect, but that's one point. And I think the second point is that I think we have to be very careful not to make this into a young person, old person debate. You know, this is a musical conversation, and I think one of the things that we have to do is to be led by what the scriptures say regarding how we are to embrace music. You know, the scriptures don't say, young people, you are to sing new songs, or, you know, older folks, you are to sing whatever songs. But as a matter of fact, a lot of what, you know, we read in the Psalms is that all of us are to sing new songs, you know. So, I mean, the scriptures talk about that we are to sing to the Lord a new song, you know. So it goes across the board. And I think that whether or not you think that we shouldn't or we should, the reality is that, you know, the scripture says in Revelations that every tribe and every nation and every language will be around the throne.
Yeah.
And so you know, you're going to have patois, people around the throne singing patois song. You're gonna have people around the throne singing rap music. You're going to have people around the throne rapping, right? You're going to have people around the throne singing and offering worship, right? In all manner of languages unto God, right? So we have to be careful that we don't call something that God has set apart holy, unholy, right? And in the same way, I think that there needs to be this balance where we create boundaries, right, which are led by our elders in the church, to embrace newness, because reality is that the church is important to sing new songs, right? And yes, we love the old songs and we love how it makes us feel, right? But that is not exclusive to the young experience or the young person's experience, right? That should be all encompassing, right? Because there may be something that how we may sing a song or how we get introduced to a new song that awakens something else or gives us a different kind of visceral experience, or even takes us back to that first experience, And so I think that it's so important to one, gauge languages. One of the things that I never understood in church was that, like, for example, our church, we tend to use the NIV a lot, but our songs would be the thee and the thou and the thousts. And so for me, my experience would be like, if we're singing the songs of the thee and the thou and the thousts, why we don't use the King James version of the Bible for us to understand then what these sort of phrasing means, and when you put these words together, how to understand them, the phrasing and the vernacular, so that it actually hits. Because I can tell you, a lot of times for me, well, let me preface this. When you're young, sometimes you will feel kind of outcasted in church, because you are a minority. And I guess in our church, we would, as a young person, we would be in the minority, right? But you're not supposed to stay there. And as your roots deepen, right, and as you learn more about God and the heart of the Lord, right, you gain this appreciation for lyrics and the worship of God, not just in your favorite way of doing things or your favorite way of playing or speaking, but you're able to relate in a deeper way with deeper worship, And so I think that I wanted to add the importance of how language interplays in our worship, and to be careful not to reject language, one, and two, to ensure that we're looking on things from a broad view and a broad perspective, not just how can we integrate young people, but how can we ourselves integrate into embracing, because that's really the topic. It's embracing change, and I think embracing the change starts with us. It starts with us being willing to open up ourselves to a new way of doing things, or a new way of singing, or a new modus operandi then. And the reality is that it can be very destabilizing for someone who is used to a particular way of doing things, or of worship, or of singing. You come to your church and you start to see people doing spoken word, and you're wondering, like, what is this? Or you come and you see people dancing and doing all sorts of things that you've never been exposed to it. But I can tell you that, the more we avail ourselves and open up ourselves, one, to listen, right? And to try out new things. I think that the young people will be more responsive. But yeah, I think that's just kind of my 2 cents. It's just that we should be cognizant of how the Lord views and thinks about new worship. God enjoys the songs that we create for him, and God wants us to sing anew. God wants to sing. God wants new songs to emanate from the heart of his people. And that's not just a condition where that is exclusive to the very young. It can be the very old and everywhere in between.
Thank you, Bradley. I will take that as your closing remarks to this discussion. Reverend Dick, before I invite our panelists to give their closing remarks, sir, is there anything you would want to add to this robust discussion? And just before Reverend Dick comes in, just to piggyback on a question that Brother Carl Ranger had raised and Godfrey tried to answer. Brother Winston Anderson online, yes, we have tried over and over to bring in inclusiveness. The problem is consistency, and that's what we need to tackle going forward. I hope I've answered your question. Reverend Dick, welcome, sir, to this very robust discussion.
Thank you very much. Just want to say thanks to the panelists for this robust, comprehensive, insightful, and informative discussion. We just have to try to implement the suggestions as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Brother Alwyn, in closing, what is it that you have to say to us as we seek to embrace change, as we seek to remain relevant from the musical perspective?
Just as you put it, it's a changing environment. The text must and continue to remain the same. But I think as a church, as a spiritual institution, we'll have to use the available technology and resources to help us to remain relevant. So thus, we have to embrace change.
Sister Cheryl, your final comment.
Yeah, I think we just need to find the balance, with the old and the new. We can't throw out the old and we cannot ignore the new. So we just have to find a balance to make things work. And that's how society works. You use from the old, the past, and you engage with the present, the new, to move forward. So I think that's what we really have to do as a church.
And to my learned friend.
We have to learn to love each other. I think that's a foundational issue. We have to learn to love each other and to accept each other and to accept the gifts that each other. We might not like how old Sister Philomena sings, but she's singing to praise the Lord. We particularly, also the young persons, have to love that. And in the same way, the older folk or other folk who have other desires for what they want to hear have to love the squeaky sound of the other people who sing in another way, and the rhythms and so on. Love.
My brothers and sisters, much more can be said and should indeed be said, because this topic is in no way, shape, or form properly discussed or fully discussed. And I'm sure we shall have to come back to this place to continue this discussion as we seek to embrace change and remain relevant. The truth is that our music plays a very central part of our worship experience, very central part. And we can't separate the different genres of music, certainly, because what ministers to a person certainly doesn't minister to another person. And we all gather for worship, for corporate worship, with a different need each time around. And certainly how each need is responded to comes from a space of how we were ministered to, or what ministers to us in terms of a song content or lyric or even rhythm. So in very short order, we shall come back to this place and this space to continue this conversation, because the church of God must stand and will stand, because the gates of hell shall not prevail against her. So forward be our watchword. Hearts and voices join. We will continue on this trajectory. We'll continue in the name of Christ. We'll continue to sing to the Lord a new song. Dr. Roll Bradley, our brother and friend, can I thank you for joining us all the way from Mandeville, Manchester. Brother Godfrey Taylor, our friend and brother, thank you, sir, for joining us in this space. Sister Cheryl Bloomfield and Brother Alwyn Clark, thank you so much for joining us in this the Jordan Miller recording studio. To my studio engineer, Delvin Hutchinson, thank you for making it also possible to have had this very wonderful, insightful, and robust discussion, embracing change, remaining relevant, the musical perspective. Have a good night, all.
Step out and forward.